If you're a CPA, bookkeeper, accountant, or other tax professional, I want to help you understand what the differences are between TaxValet and sales tax software. One of the biggest misconceptions that we run into is that people think that we are a sales tax software company, and that is just not the case. We are a professional service company. We're powered by humans with hearts and love and everything else, and we happen to leverage technology in order to solve our partners and their clients' sales tax problems. Some of the technology we've built, some of the technology is built by other companies and we license it. But at the end of the day, our clients come to us because they want to know their sales tax is being done correctly. They don't have to lift a finger and it's all being taken care of. Sales tax software, on the other hand, is a tool that you can purchase in order to manage and deal with everything yourself. So asking us what's the difference between TaxValet and sales tax software is kind of like asking an accountant what's the difference between you and QuickBooks. Like if you actually started getting into it, you'd realize that's kind of a silly question because there's so much that goes into the work that you do, and to think that you could just be replaced by some QuickBooks auto lookup rules, like it doesn't make sense. But it's understandable that people would have that question because they don't fully appreciate all the nuance and everything that goes into sales tax. And I can't blame them. Like I want to know, I would want to know as little about sales tax as humanly possible if I didn't need to. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that we have a team of dedicated sales tax experts that you will be working with on a monthly basis for your clients that understand you, your particular workflows, your clients' workflows, their particular setups, their data channels, the products that they're selling. They're helping you come up with a plan and strategy for what you should do and what your clients should do in order to mitigate their exposure. They're creating advice, they're providing advice for what steps should be taken in order to mitigate the sales tax risk. And then they're going and doing it. They're registering for the sales tax permits. They're setting up the state accounts. They're setting up those tax settings in the sales channels. They are reviewing notices and letters from the state. Sales tax software doesn't do any of this. And with some of the newer sales tax software players on the block, they're providing a very light professional services, like maybe they're reviewing some of the mail and notifying you if there's an issue that needs to be dealt with, but they're not providing the level of expertise and the level of advisory support that really is necessary in order to completely eliminate the hassle and stress of sales tax. I mean, let's just say, for example, that there's an audit. Managing audits is something that sales tax software does not do. And if your client is audited, they're going to be showing up very urgently, expecting you to drop everything in order to manage this. First of all, do you have the time to do that? Second, do you want to do it? And third, how many sales tax audits have you dealt with over time? Like we've dealt with quite a few. We know what comes up, where the auditors are maybe overstepping, where we should push back, and we know how to keep the process moving. And the fact is, a lot of accounting partners, they just don't have the sufficient time, resource, energy, expertise in order to deal with it, whereas we do. And the software is not going to be helping you at all. Like if you wrote into support, let's say you are managing an audit, you write into support and say, oh, I'm being audited. Can you help me get this data? They're probably going to put up their little like defensive mechanism and say like, we are not responsible for anything. This is a tool for you to manage everything yourself. I mean, this is where software companies get very defensive because they want to make it clear that like this is all your problem, and whatever problem you're dealing with, you created, and it's none of their responsibility. What I find so funny is that these software companies will put like guaranteed, like guaranteed everywhere on their website. They're only guaranteeing the tax calculations. There's nothing there about product taxability or Nexus, even though their tools are doing Nexus analyses. And then they will put a limitation on what they could potentially owe you in the event of litigation of like 6 months of the fees that you're paying. Well, if you're paying like, I don't know, $500 a month, the most that you could get back from them is like $3,000. Excuse me, if you are under a sales tax audit, the average sales tax audit is a little over $300,000. So where Where's the integrity and accountability here? The software companies just don't have it. We do. I mean, we stand up for all of the decisions we make. We stand up for if there's a mistake. We cover it, we pay for it, we deal with it. It's just who we are. I mean, it's one of our core values. Own it. Another big issue when it comes to sales tax software has to do with how the data is getting into the system. So with many of these apps, there will be third-party plugins, integrations, so that the transaction data can go from one system into the other so that the sales tax software can calculate and prepare and then submit the returns. The issue is that oftentimes there either one isn't an integration for the sales channels that your client sells in, or two, if there is an integration, it doesn't exactly work perfectly. Maybe the tax isn't being calculated correctly, or maybe there's missing elements of the data so that the data actually needs to be manipulated. Maybe there's something missing that needs to be added. Maybe there's something that needs to be broken out. Invoicing issues. I mean, there's numerous examples of this. And what that means is that you would need to go download the data, manually transform, modify, update it, and then re-upload it into the system. This is where most of the time is actually spent on sales tax. It's not on the returns, it's actually spent on the data. And if everything hooks up perfectly, everything's working and syncing correctly, then sales tax software can be great for the return process. It's still not going to manage all the other stuff we were talking about. It can be great for the return process. However, usually that isn't the case. Most of our clients are selling on between 5 and 10 different channels, and at least like one of those channels isn't going to integrate, right? And so we actually go in, we download all that data, we modify it, we make sure that it's accurate, we double check it with you or the client just to make sure there's nothing missing. Situation where a client actually will add a sales channel, not notify us, and thank God we were double checking, is like, it's truly shocking, right? That happens all the time with software. Stuff changes with the sales channels. A channel is added but not actually integrated with the sales tax software, and it can be 6 months or a year before someone realizes it, and then they owe a whole bunch of money with back taxes plus penalties and interest. So moral of the story is that data is really complicated. It takes a whole bunch of time, and if you're using software because you're under the illusion that all the data is just going to flow over and be imported into it nicely, you might be sorely mistaken when you realize how much time it's going to take. We allocate a few hours every single month just with the data cleanup for every client. The last big difference between TaxValet and sales tax software is legislative monitoring. So it's kind of insane how many sales tax legal updates there are. I think we get like 20 or 30 per day, and that includes weekends. So we're getting like thousands of these every year. I mean, probably every month. And so we have a whole team at TaxValet where their whole job is to go through every single update and say, does this apply to any of our clients? If so, what are the implications? Do we need to update our systems or processes based on these? Do we need to notify the client? Is there some change we need to make? And the reality is many accounting businesses don't know where to look in order to get all of these updates. Or if they do, they just don't have the time. I mean, do you have like a full team in order to stay on top of all of these changes? Because some of these changes are pretty big. Like let's say a product wasn't taxable and now it is. And maybe there's just one client that this applies to in your entire roster. But now all of a sudden, let's say California is now taxing a product that they weren't for one of your clients. That could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in uncollected sales tax for a year. So all of a sudden, just like one small little thing for one little client can be a really, really big expensive mistake. And this is why, like, we understand the importance of this. This is why we have a whole team to, monitor all of the legislative updates. Sales tax software doesn't do that for you. Like, okay, they're going to have tax codes where you can set the tax code to say what how your product should be taxed in each state, right? However, they're not going to be notifying you of all the other changes. Let's say I don't know, South Dakota just eliminated the transaction count threshold. That meant that a whole bunch of our clients can unregister. Sales tax software is not going to notify you of that. Sales tax software is not going to notify you if the definition for one of their product tax codes changed and now your client's product might no longer fit within the definition of their exemption, which now means that you're not collecting tax when you should be. There's just so many ways that this can go wrong. And the sales tax software is going to be marketing that, it's always up to date. It's like there's truth to that because they're going to be updating the tax rates. But when it comes to this product taxability stuff, when it comes to Nexus stuff, when it comes to all these other things outside of like the rates, I don't think it's fully honest to say that like you're going to always have accurate, up-to-date information in order to make the best decision for your clients. We can say that at TaxValet because this is what we do. We're not just a tool, we're not just an app that you just like plug in and then set and forget and then later regret it when there's an audit. We're a team of sales tax experts that are going to work closely with you and your clients. We understand what your workflow is and we integrate with it. When I say integrate, I don't mean like from a technology perspective. I mean from like a human perspective. We work closely with you to make sure that you and your clients get the help that you need. So if you're interested in partnering, you can learn more about us at thetaxvalet.com. You can schedule an initial consultation with us, learn more about our partner program, and reach out to see if we might be a good fit for each other. Thank you and take care.